Welcome to Current Events. We're so glad you joined us today. I know that everybody out there is really, really concerned about the situation in the country right now. Of course, we are concerned as well, but we know that God's promises, they come true, they never fail. So we have God on our side, and what more can we ask for? Because God is on our side. I mean, what do you think, Doris?
I tell you what, I feel like we're in this time where, you know, we've spoken a lot about faith, but now we're in a place where we're having to activate our faith. And so for everybody out there wondering where we still stand firm, believing, trusting, and we are holding the line. And that's our encouragement to you. I have turned off the mainstream media. I'm not looking at anything. I know we're not.
Me too. I'm not looking at it.
We're not
either.
looking at it because we know that lies have poured out, and we know there's a massive strategy in place right now, and we know what's at stake, and that's what we're about to start talking about, is what would happen and what would be at stake if Trump weren't to win and Biden were. We believe that Trump has won. We believe that he did win and that there's massive fraud that's happened. That's where we stand.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I've been in a personal capacity. I can't say the things that I actually said because now we're on camera, but the way that I actually feel I struggle when people just bail when things don't look good. Imagine if all the prophets had bailed from what God told them when the situation seemed opposite. Because for a while it can seem like that, but we know that what God promised is true. It's yes and amen.
It's actually typical.
Yes.
Typical of God. And he does these things in order to increase our faith in him. He puts us in these positions where we are forced to rely completely and wholly on him. And I've never seen anything like what we're experiencing right now, where we cannot trust anything. Where no matter where we turn to social media or to the news or to pick up a newspaper, at this stage, everybody feels on all sides that they cannot trust it. And that is God putting us in a position to completely trust him. And so, I've had people write to me and say, well, what can you send us more? Can you share more prophecies? What else do you have? And my stance on that is we have shared it. God already promised it in advance. We've slowly watched much of it come to pass. Incredible things come to pass. And so at this stage, imagine yourself in the middle of warfare, in the middle of a battle. You don't always know who's winning and losing when you are a soldier fighting in the middle of that battle. You don't know till you hear that call of victory. And it may seem, in whichever pocket of the battle you are, like, are we losing? Are we winning? You can't think that way. You keep your eye on, we have won. We've done the victory dance. God has given us the promise, and his will be done. And so, anyway, that's my little 2 cents before we go into...
The issues at hand are, if Biden were to win, what would actually happen?
Right. And none of it is good because we're already seeing things coming out that different, especially the far left extremist groups that are fear, and the news media, which is complicit, using fear to trick people into giving up their freedoms, thinking, oh, just during COVID or just for this time, we're going to have to do. If they can impose a law, they will never take it away. And so there is a trick, and we're not denying COVID exists because it does, but what we're saying is the abuse of people in power in politics, world leaders, etc. The abuse of their power in this time of the pandemic and a weak time to abuse their power and start to take away freedoms is a huge danger in a Biden victory, because the Biden administration...
They've not told us the truth, Donna.
No, they have not told the truth.
We were expecting to hear the truth, and now we hear they're going to lock us down. They're going to make a mask mandate for everybody. You have to wear a mask.
There's the making of lists.
You will go to jail if you don't wear a mask.
Right. The making of lists as well is a very typical communist thing. The making of lists, you did not agree, and many of you already know that some prominent leaders on the extreme far left have made threats, open threats on social media platforms, and they are not censored. But our president, who is still our president, Donald Trump, until Inauguration Day, our president has been censored, and I've watched it happen on Twitter. because that's the only social media I'm actually looking at right now because of Donald Trump.
He was censored 194 times.
And anybody who's using the terms voter fraud, we are allowed to ask questions in the United States of America without being censored by a social media that is obviously biased, and we all know they are. So this is a very difficult position. We have already moved, we've started our move over to Parler and Rumble and other avenues, but we must recognize the danger. This isn't just about, oh, I like this candidate and I like that candidate, or we have some issues we disagree with. This is a huge, huge election, probably one of the biggest in recent history. And that's why it's so important for us to remember what was prophesied, and not only by my father. My dad saw it first, but he wasn't the only one who saw. And that's a very important thing to remember too, is that the prophets of this time are in agreement and all saw the same thing. Reliable prophetic voices across the world. And so this is a time for faith, and the danger of that socialist communism that my father prophesied would not happen. Would not happen. We're fighting against that now. So we're in the middle of the battle. So don't be afraid. Don't become, if you're allowed to be pulled away, then your faith will be diminished, and then you will go into despair, and then the enemy now has control over you.
Well, that's what happens when you are forbidden to go to church or to gather together. Yes. You aren't encouraged. You see, you're not encouraged by your fellow Christians. They're not encouraging you, and that's don't forsake the gathering together is what the Bible tells us, because in that forsaking of that gathering, you lose confidence, you lose faith, and you feel like you're alone. And that is the plan. The whole plan of the enemy is to do that to us Christians. Yes.
It's isolation. And so a small practical thing, and then I know Donna is going to read this article just about Israel, because Israel is always a huge focus for us, and this is what we're looking at. But an encouragement for those of you that sometimes struggle with anxiety, like I know I do. Every time a thought comes against you where you question it, pray out loud. Pray out loud and thank God that His will be done in the nation, and that every wicked deed of darkness will be exposed. It's something practical. When you feel anxious, just say, God, I thank you that every wicked, evil work of darkness will be exposed and shown to come out into the light. And I thank you that your will is being done in this nation. It doesn't have to be a 27-hour intercession thing. I mean, if you feel called to that, God bless you. We thank you. But if it's just a thing where throughout the day, it's a struggle, where Paul said, pray continually. This is what he was talking about, because he was in a time of pressing and crushing and struggle. So every time those things come against you, this is what I've started doing. Instead of talking about it and freaking out, I've just gone, God, I thank you. And I'm grateful, like Jane was saying, about this gathering, this group of women that I have around me, where we're in this prayer group together. And if one of us pops up with something, another one will say, hey, we're holding the line, we're praying. And that's what we need. So anyway, you can read your article, but I just wanted to say that. Let's stand and pray.
I'm 100% in agreement with that. So the first article I have here is, will Biden victory bring a nuclear-powered Iran much closer? Well, I can already tell you yes on that without even reading this article to you. As foreign leaders begin to accept the mainstream media's declaration, and let me just say that the mainstream media does not decide the presidency, the Electoral College does in December. So he is not president-elect. Iran is beginning to hint that the new Biden-led reality would include their possession of nuclear weapons, with their primary target being the United States. Last week, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani called for Joe Biden to return to the U.S. to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known commonly as the Iran nuclear deal that was brokered by his former boss, Barack Obama, in 2015. Now, an opportunity has come up, this is a quote, for the next U.S. administration to compensate for past mistakes and return to the path of complying with international agreements through respect of international norms. The state-run IRNA news agency quoted him as saying that. I'm hearing the echo of prophecy in my head over this with Iran, and that's not going to happen, because it would basically mean everything that God has been doing so far would be then reversed. Because that's actually what that actually means to me, and I have to be honest in saying that, and I don't believe that will happen.
And that's one of the reasons we're standing and praying, because this is so much bigger than just a candidate. This is about policy, and this is about the future of America, Israel, and the world, I believe.
It's the future. It's God's. God is in control. And believe it or not, the political climate in the world, it all revolves around God. It all does.
Yes.
Because the Bible speaks about this beast that's going to arise. Yes. And you can see it. This beast, this Islamic thing that's going on here right now is part of the beast system. Yes. When the Bible speaks about a beast, it's talking about an empire. It's talking about a government that's going to take control. And it's prophesied in the Bible, throughout the Bible, all throughout the prophets and the book of Revelation. And so we know that Bible prophecy is coming to pass before our eyes. And it can be frightening for people who aren't sure of their salvation, and they're not sure of their right standing with God. That can be something that could frighten people. Yes. But when you have the Lord in your life and you've put him first, then you know that your foundation is sure. There's nothing that can rattle it, because God's promises to us Christians are unbelievable. I mean, we are promised to be saved from the hour of trial that's coming upon the whole world. And we know that this beast system cannot actually fully rise to what it's going to become, because us Christians are still here on planet Earth. And that's a very, very, I'll talk about that in a little bit later on.
She's getting excited about this, about about the beast, and we were talking about this earlier, but I'll wait and get to that later with you. But the other thing that we wanted to say, because we'll flat out say it, we're not ashamed or afraid to say we fully believe there has been voter fraud, and that all the proof is coming pouring in, that's just being blocked on the mainstream media, of course. But another thing here is Pennsylvanians in Israel who voted Trump discover their absentee ballots have disappeared. It's like the ballot fairy came and just magically made them disappear. Israel is estimated to boast the world's third largest community of eligible U.S. voters abroad, with no less than 188,000 Americans in Israel that qualified to vote in the U.S. election. And although most Jews in the U.S. favored Democratic candidate Joe Biden, in Israel it's almost the opposite. A recent survey revealed that 75% of American Jews in America favored Democratic candidate Joe Biden, while just 22% favored Trump. But in Israel, 70% of Israeli Jews preferred Trump and just 13% preferred Biden. Many of those eligible Trump supporters in Israel are registered in Pennsylvania. And according to Mark Zell, the head of the Republican Party in Israel, thousands of overseas ballots for Pennsylvania disappeared before or during the tabulation process. Just disappeared.
Quite shocking.
I didn't know that.
Shocking.
So it's just, look, what we're seeing is evidence coming out from everywhere. And it's not just coming from Trump and his legal team and Sidney Powell, who is brilliant, by the way, absolutely brilliant. And Rudy Giuliani, not just from there, everywhere. It's just flooding out and flooding out. And this is part of the draining of the swamp, or the cleansing that needs to happen. Is we're in the middle of seeing things getting uncovered, and then there's the people who don't want it uncovered trying to cover it back up. And that's what we're actually seeing happen. But what has happened in the process of all of this is that the majority of Americans, and understandably, trusting your election process, trusting these systems, haven't turned their eyes to that system in a long time. But right now, every American, I could probably say there's a massive percentage of American people in America looking at the system. It doesn't matter which party you're in. Everybody's looking at how it's functioning and why does it work this way and why does it work that way and why. And that is a very good place to be, because now all of our eyes are on it, and we can figure it out on our own to find the truth, because the truth shines like a bright light. It's sometimes very hard to see. Think of looking into bright light. It's hard. And so sometimes the truth can be hard to see, and there's some horrible things that have been coming up. But we need to see it in order to clean it up. And that's, I think, what we're in the middle of. And this whole election thing, too. I think this has been happening on a smaller scale for a long time. And now they tried it big time because they wanted to knock Trump out, and they are being exposed. And this is part of what God prophesied, the deeper, bigger, broader thing there.
I know there's something we wanted to talk about this China-like surveillance that you were going to do.
So Israel installs China-like surveillance system to monitor people without masks gathering in crowds.
This is what they're doing in Israel right now. Can you believe it? They're actually doing this.
Well, the division you can see again, and if you remember what Daddy prophesied about what God would do in the United States of America and Israel at the same time. Well, while God is doing things at the same time in both countries, the enemy is also doing things in both sides in both countries and causing that division, divide and conquer. It's just so blatantly obvious through all of this. Yep. But an unprecedented surveillance system was installed in the central city of Or Akiva to monitor if Israelis are following the health ministry's COVID restrictions, including wearing masks and social distancing. Security Magazine reported that it was deployed several weeks ago in major locations throughout the city. The smart surveillance cameras can identify if someone is wearing a mask and can even measure the distance between people to determine if they're adhering to social distancing orders, according to the report. The technology also has the capability of measuring a group's density in certain areas to prevent overcrowding. The device also features a public address system whereby government officials can warn against violations, enabling the police to be deployed to the scene if required. According to the report, the surveillance system doesn't have facial recognition capabilities. But with all of these capabilities that it does have, you're telling me they can't rig election machines?
Oh, no, it's like... I mean,
if they have this kind of technology that can monitor us this way, then I question, I saw that there was a statement made out of Canada, and I cannot quote it now because it's off the top of my head, and you can look it up and correct me if I'm wrong. But they said that in Canada, the way they vote is paper only. And they hand count by paper only. They do not trust electronic machines because of the potential for fraud.
I do know that in Canada they're fining people already for gathering. One of my best friends lives there. And
so, Christy, but now in Israel, yes, in Israel
they're doing this surveillance. And let me tell you something. When COVID-19 is gone, you are still going to be required to wear your mask and to be compliant with whatever they're telling you to do. Yep. Because they don't actually really want a vaccine. They want to control. They don't want a cure to happen too quickly until they've got their plans really locked in place.
Yes.
Because this is the whole thing that the Bible was talking about in Revelation. You are eventually going to have a number on your forehead or your right hand, which can be seen with a light.
Mm-hmm. Be scanned.
If they're doing this right now,
they could scan you.
They totally are
also
going to be...
cash. There's no cash anymore because of COVID. Now, we're not using cash, which makes sense if there's a pandemic, but now we're moving away from cash.
But it's making things that were fringe mainstream and people stop questioning.
Yes. You're being desensitized to this. Mm-hmm. And that's the main issue.
Control.
First of all, March, they said you're only going to be doing this for a month. Then it went longer and longer and longer.
Yes.
And now it's accumulated into part of the political election to such a degree where we are now. This has been creeping in. Mm-hmm. This the surveillance, the machine. That now the machines are being hijacked
And then in California, don't sing at Thanksgiving. You're not allowed to sing. And if you do, you have to sing softly and you have to have a mask and be 6 feet away from people in your own home and family.
Right.
And look, I'm all for being cautious and wearing a mask in public if with the pandemic.
This is getting out of hand now, Donna.
We are now seeing the abuse of the leaders.
And now that the possibility that Biden actually becomes the president is a very, very scary thought. And I thought at least we'd have another 4 years. But if Biden becomes the president, our freedoms are gone. And what it looks like to me when looking at Bible prophecy and seeing what's happening with Turkey, seeing what's happening in the United States, seeing what's happening around the world with the United Nations, Bible prophecy is coming to pass. It's coming to pass so quickly that
yes,
there are. Look, these are some of the top 10 Bible prophecies that I'm going to just reference quickly. People mocking Bible prophecy is in the Bible in 2 Peter verse 3, 2 Peter verse 3. Forming a one world religion, government, and economy is in Revelation 17, 18, 13, 11 to 18. Confirming a 7-year peace treaty with Israel is in Daniel 9:27. Intoxicating obsession with dividing Jerusalem in Zechariah 12. Global cry for peace and security, 1 Thessalonians. Increase of lawlessness is in 2 Thessalonians. Increase of wickedness is in Genesis. It's in Luke. Massive earthquakes increasing in frequency and intensity, Matthew and Luke. Sudden destruction of Damascus in Isaiah 17 and in Jeremiah 49. Allied invasion of Israel led by Russia, Iran, and Turkey in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Now, you can see, which leads to actually this, the news on Turkey, Christy.
So Turkey is accused of plotting to take over the Palestinian Authority. And why this is so important is because the Palestinian Authority is right on Israel's doorstep. Turkey's obviously further away. A lot of these nations that have got a problem with Israel are further away, but the Palestinian Authority is within the boundaries of Israel as a nation already. So is Turkish President Erdogan going to sway a future Palestinian Authority election in favor of Hamas? The development comes after the Palestinian Authority...
Excuse me, just say that again. Is...
The Turkish president...
The Turkish president is... Hamas is the Palestinian...
The Hamas is the Palestinian... They're the terrorism organization that in essence has run... They're the endorsed terrorist organization of the Palestinian Authority.
And they're there on the border of Israel.
I've stood there and I can see their flag. Not far. There it is. There's the stronghold. Couple hundred feet.
That's in Gaza.
Some of it's in Gaza and some of it is on the border from Lebanon. I mean, I was there on the border of Syria when a rocket had just fallen. Right. And Kim said, go closer. I said, okay. He said, you'll be safe, go. I said, okay. And off I went. But this is the thing about Israel. You've got Syria, you've got Jordan, you've got Lebanon, you've got Egypt. You've got these nations that are entirely surrounding and encapsulating her. And so if somebody like Turkey manages to take control, because we already know Iran is pulling the strings in Syria.
Yeah.
So if Turkey manages to pull strings within the Palestinian Authority, they're inside the nation of Israel already. Because Gaza and the West Bank belongs to Israel, but they're living there. Yes. And this is why living in Sderot and in these southern parts of Israel is so dangerous, is because they just have to shoot a rocket over a fence, and they're in Israel.
What does the Biden presidency mean for Israel?
It's finished.
I mean,
if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, Iran chant in the street, "Death to America, death to Israel." Do you think that's not their plan? If they're chanting it in the street, now Biden wants to just give them what they need to have a nuclear weapon.
He wants to reform the JCPOA.
What do you think they are going to do with a nuclear weapon as soon as they get their hands on it? Do you think they're not going to try to blow up the United States?
And so this is something that we have to look at the reason, because we're talking about Bible prophecy, Ezekiel 38 and 39. There's a tie here between Russia, Iran, and Turkey. Yes. There's a link here. Yes, and so Iran already has their little sticky, dirty fingers right there in the Syrian parts. But now if this Turkish president, who's vehemently opposed to Israel and America, I mean, violently opposed. This kind of article is speaking about how he's wanting to kind of monitor the election process that's going on, and how Abbas is assuming that Turkey can serve as a fair election observer after Erdogan has already been accused of rigging his own elections in his own favor in Turkey. That's what's going on right now.
And Turkey used to be a NATO ally of the West. And that is no longer the case. It's no longer the case. He is not an ally.
And also,
he wants to form his own NATO.
Yes.
He wants to form a NATO, a type of NATO that with these other countries. That's what
to compete with NATO.
It's to compete with NATO. So yes. This in itself is very, very biblical.
It is.
And it's exactly what Ezekiel 38 speaks about.
And Edwan, because this is part of the Ezekiel 38, 39, recently, he's claimed that Jerusalem belongs to Turkey. He's made recent claims about that. And so, it's because of he has this aspiration to reestablish the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And so we see this obsession with dividing Jerusalem. Now he's making claims to it. And so if he is empowered by a U.S. administration that's a paper tiger, where there are threats but nothing followed through, much like the Obama administration, but worse because now they're far left and they're not hiding it.
Right.
I mean, the future of Israel is indeed very dire if you look at it in terms of on paper. We obviously know God is the one fighting for them and we stand on that.
Like I said, I hope that we'd have another 4 years.
Me too.
But if this is going to be the case, we don't have another 4 years. We just don't.
With these kind of guys knocking right on the door,
no,
you've got a problem. And we kind of made mention of it about how Turkey, they're trying to do this to form this. I don't know if there's like a little section of that you'd like to read, Donna, just about how they're wanting to form their own sort of intergovernmental thing, to sort of compete with NATO.
Yeah, let me just read that to you. It's Turkey looks to form its own intergovernmental military alliance competing with NATO. A premier Turkish newspaper recently published an article in which prominent academics called for the formation of a multinational army patterned after NATO that, according to its proponents, would be one of the West's greatest fears. This may seem like conjecture, however, Turkish President Erdogan has adopted this as one of his goals while expanding Turkey's military involvement in the region. A pan-Turan army may be closer than most think, as Turkish President Erdogan is working hard to bring this about. Much of his policy and rhetoric reflects pan-Turanist influence. On August 20th, 2020, Turkish Daily reported that the Turkish president planned to announce on October 29th the formation of a Turan army. This announcement never took place, however. Many believe it still might. It is interesting to note that the article came one day before the scheduled announcement by Erdogan concerning the formation of the Turan army. So, scheming over there.
Very.
Look, they're scheming everywhere. So...
But these schemes are obviously, Ezekiel saw these schemes.
He did.
Ezekiel saw this.
Saw it, it's spot on. And Ezekiel's prophecies came to pass. I mean, Ezekiel 36, 37, the dry bones came together.
Yes.
Can a nation be born in a day? It happened 1948, and Israel became a nation in one day. And that prophecy came to pass. Now, those bones need breath. And that prophecy is ongoing. We can see it unfolding before our eyes with the Jewish nation. The fact that these prophecies have actually come to pass, where Israel would be scattered and brought back to the homeland, this is all in the Bible.
Yes.
It's all in the Bible.
It is.
It's all happened. It's Israel came back to the land. They were scattered abroad. Who could have thought that that Jews would come back to a homeland? It was not even thought of back in those days.
Especially out of the Holocaust.
No, it could. I mean, and the actual anti-Semitism that's going on in the world is totally scriptural. It's scriptural. It's in the Bible. So for everyone out there that's just wondering why we are talking about Israel, why are we carrying on about this, it's because the Bible is true. It's proven. It's coming to pass. And we're trying to make everybody aware of it because it's a crucial time in the United States and in the world for us to be aware of what's going on around us. We were born in this time.
Yes.
Can you imagine? You are special. God wanted you in this time in his creation. He wanted you here right now. So you have what it takes to overcome in this generation. You have what it takes.
Yes.
And that's what I want to tell everyone out there. Always say every current events, make sure you and your maker are on the same page.
Yes.
But not to worry if you are on the same page with your maker.
Yes.
Because the end is not yet. We are getting close to it, but it's not yet.
It's the end times, but not the end of time.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully we've got another 4 years.
I think that we do. No matter what freeing myself from the news and turning that TV off and spending time in prayer and reading the Bible and looking over what Daddy prophesied and looking at what other people have prophesied, I have a peace. I'm not worried. I have to be honest, I am not worried. It's so absurd, all of this. And I feel like there's like a necessary purging happening so that all this can be uncovered, so that all can be revealed. And so I'm sticking with hold the line, guys, because this is far from over. And really, I would encourage you to spend more time with God and less time watching your TV and looking at your social media, because God will tell you the truth every time.
There's something I wanted to read quick and then I know we're going to end with something pretty cool, but I just wanted to read this and a little bit of an encouragement that I was sent this morning again with this prayer group I'm part of. So reading from Psalm 110, the Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. The Lord will extend your mighty scepter from Zion. You will rule in the midst of your enemies. Your troops will be willing on your day of battle. Arrayed in holy majesty from the womb of the dawn, you will receive the dew of your youth. And it carries on. But this is something that one of the women in my group, Angela, sent us. And she's really, she's just like this pillar of faith. Like when all of us saw her, she's just like, we're fine, guys, we're fine. And she wrote this and I just wanted to read it. Jesus will destroy the wicked. He will reign on earth. He is the one who came to save and to reign. We cannot be concerned at this time. I'm encouraging each one of us this morning that we cannot give up the good fight no matter what the enemy throws at us. Refuse to believe the enemy, always. This election is about our faith, not two men. And she says there flat out, Trump will get reelected. However, what I and each of us have to ask ourselves is this: did I lose faith when I was tested?
Oh, brilliant.
And that was like, I just went, Angela, come in with the fire, man, this morning. It was early too. It was like 7 in the morning. And I'm going, do you know what? Well, this is about my faith. It's about our faith. It's about the Church of Jesus Christ rising, standing. It's a separating who is where. Are there people that look one way and actually act another? And it's about my heart. Where is my heart in all of this? Where is our heart collectively? And are we going to stand when tested? That's the question.
And the thing is, I think that's why perhaps God needed to push us a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Because America has, it's a wonderful country, and you can be very comfortable here and live very well. Yes. And the poorest people in America are considered wealthy in other parts of the world. Yeah. And so I think that especially the church in America needed to be pushed, needed to be pushed to be ready for the next, whatever's next, after Trump and all the stuff and everything that's happened. And I think that, yes, she was right on with that, is that our faith is being tested, but it is growing and strengthening, and we are coming together in a way we never would have if none of this had happened. So,
true.
Well, I just want to say that this world will come to an end. It's predicted in the Bible.
Definitely
we don't know the day or the hour that Jesus is going to come back. We don't know that. It's not told us. We do not know the day or the hour, but we will know the season. Yes. And it looks to us like the season is really getting closer and closer. Yes. And that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying giving a date, and I'm not saying the end of the world is coming. Now, when I say 4 years,
you're saying the timeline.
That I'm giving you a kind of a timeline. And I don't know if it's...
You navigate.
You mean the whole timeline, it could change slightly. Yes. That's what I mean. Yes.
I'm figuring the timeline because of what we see happening in the world, because of what we see going on with countries, the fact that these countries are around Israel. Israel is our time clock.
Yes.
We watch Israel very closely because we know what happens to Israel is God is very, very concerned about that piece of land. That piece of land is not belonged to the Jews. It actually belongs to God.
Yes.
And he said, "That's my land.
Yes.
Don't you divide it. Don't divide Jerusalem. That belongs to me."
Yes. Yes.
Not me, but God.
God, yes.
It belongs to Jane Clement.
But I just want to say this. There is scriptures in the Bible that give us an idea of what is what is actually going on. I mean, like I read to you those prophecies, those 10 prophecies that I just read to you. What I'm going to read to you now is, we know that the world cannot come to a conclusion with Christians because of 2 Thessalonians, where it says, let no one deceive you by any means, for that day. When it says for that day, it's talking about the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is the end of time as we know it, the end of the world as we know it, will not come unless a falling away comes first. And now we can see a great falling away in the world when it comes to Christians. There's a great falling away. Now there's a dialogue going on with prophecy teachers about this little section here called the falling away. It's called the apostasia. What does it actually mean? Does it mean people are falling away? They're falling away from Christianity. They're falling away from God. Or could it be that they're taken out of here? They're raptured out of here. Now, some people think that that's what it means. What it means that the day of the Lord will not come unless the catching away happens first. Or it could mean the day of the Lord is not coming unless there's this falling away from Christianity. Now, there's both ways to think about that. It's got to come first. So let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first. And the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition. Now we know what is restraining, so what is holding the coming of the Lord back, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, because he who now restrains will do so until the he is taken out of the way. He who now restrains is the Holy Spirit, which lives inside the church. And the Holy Spirit is restraining the evil in the world right now. The Holy Spirit in us, the church, are restraining evil in the world. When the restraint of the Holy Spirit is taken out of the world, is when the church is removed from this planet. That is when they're going to see, we won't see it. They will see the son of perdition, this beast system and this antichrist. And that is the section of time called the 7-year tribulation. That is that section of time. But that's why we speak about this all the time, and we try and say, guys, you've got an opportunity to get out of here. And people just say, oh, you're just an escapist, so you just want to escape from. Well, yes, absolutely I do. I want to escape. And I'm sure all of you do too. If there's a way to get out of it, let's take that train out of here. Okay. But anyway, that's on a side. That's on a side note. And if Kim was here, he would be patting me on the back.
Yes, he would.
And he would, because we had this conversation many, many times over the years. And Amios, I am a real believer in the end times and what's going on. And I would speak to him about it, and we would have really great conversation about it. But
I'm remembering when
he used to call me his little harpotzer. He pat me on the back. Yes, my little harpotzer.
He texted my mom the one time and said, I remember when he texted my mom, he said, Pivo, I don't know what is going on with Jane. She's sitting at this table with all these Bibles everywhere. He says, my God, you've got to see it to believe it. And he started taking pictures of her with all these Bibles in that outside table.
Because at that point, that was about 7 years ago.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was.
But God was preparing you for now.
It was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
that's why all of a sudden He put that in you to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you had always known about it, but it was always you and Daddy. God kind of pulled you away alone.
Yes.
To prepare you for a time without Daddy.
Yes.
And that's where we are now. And so I think that's why God's timing worked the way
I wished He hadn't done that, but
we all do.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
you know what? God will understand.
Why don't we speak about the last little? I had this.
Yes, tell them about the meat.
Yes. There we go.
Where is it, Doris?
Here we go, Madonna. Just give me a second.
The reason I call her Doris is because Kim renamed her Doris, and
he did.
So
called
now,
me Doris of the day.
When she was living with us, everyone called her
Call
Doris.
your husband Sid?
He calls him James, son of thunder.
James, son of thunder. His real name is Sid. I don't know.
But he called him James.
Okay. So this is what's happening in Israel right now. I don't know if you all want to know about this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The first lab-grown meat restaurant opens in Tel Aviv.
Sure.
Miraculous food from heaven, it says. A new restaurant called The Chicken recently opened near Tel Aviv, adjacent to a super meat production plant. It is essentially a test kitchen for lab-grown meat, or what the chef refers to as cultured chicken.
Sure.
As such, diners are not required to pay for their meal, but are asked to give feedback. Diners can choose to sit at the bar and watch the chefs at work, or they can sit in the dining room where they can see the factory where the protein for their meal is being produced. Now, you know how they get this chicken? They get this, is they take the cells from a chicken, the meat cells from the chicken, and they reproduce the meat cells.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy?
So then you don't have to kill the chickens.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like the
we can stop killing them. Because the thing is, I love to eat chickens, but when I see actual chickens, I love the chickens and I feel bad for eating them.
I'm just really impressed it's not made from tofu.
Well, that's the first thing I thought.
Donnie, the problem is that the Green New Deal is trying to say don't have any more cows because they let off too much gas for the atmosphere.
Well, how come the cows didn't do that for all of time that they've existed? Because cows have been around a long time.
I feel like that.
How come only now the cow's gas is a problem?
Look, we're having a little bit of fun right now.
I'll tell you something about the Green New Deal. That's another scam. I mean, it's been called all kinds of things. It's been called global warming and global cooling and then climate change. And you know what? Yes, the climate's always been changing. And yes, there's things that we need to do. We are responsible to take care of our earth, but I don't like the politicization of it. And it's the same with COVID. I don't like when politicians step in and start making laws about things that people would voluntarily take care of. You don't need to make laws. It's just people trying to gain power.
The fact is that we are living in a fallen generation. This world is a fallen world.
Yeah.
Okay, it is dying. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Exactly. The Green New Deal, no matter what they're talking about, is not going to fix planet Earth.
No.
There's only one person that's going to fix planet Earth, and that's God. Yes. Because of the fall of man, this world is dying. It's a fact.
It is.
You can't fix it, and that's what I have to say about that.
And the one thing I just wanted to say, because we're obviously ending now, but each week we're here, this is what we do, and the goal and the desire is to bring hope.
Yes.
Because right now, if you turn on your TV, you're going to have hopelessness poured in, and we don't want that. We want to be people who are pillars of hope. Remember Zechariah 9:12, return to your fortress, you prisoners of hope. Even now I announce, I will restore twice as much to you. And so we're here standing, trusting, praying. If you need prayer, email us either at hope@houseofdestiny.org, or you can email me on israelupdate@houseofdestiny.org. A lot of people have been emailing into me with prayer requests, and I've loved seeing some responses to those prayers, as in they've been answered. So God is working, He's moving. Do not lose hope, and we keep holding together. We holding the line here, people. That's what we're doing. Hold, it's what we're doing. So that's just my encouragement. This week as you go out, and we're going to see you again next week, Saturday, and all the stuff that happens in between. Monday, Prophetic Rewind, and Wednesdays, and then Fridays with Israel Update. But just remember, you're not alone. Even though the enemy's tried to make you feel isolated, you are not alone. We're in this together. Yes. So that's what I wanted to say.
And I just want to tell you, people out there, just download our House of Destiny app.
Yes.
If for some reason you cannot find us on social media and you're looking for us, we have our HOD app. You can download that. houseofdestiny.tv. You can see us there.
Mm-hmm. And all the channels and everything. But the one thing that we want you to remember is that we have the app. So if for some reason you can't see us on social media, just download our app and everything is on there. Yes. All of our broadcasts, each section, the prophecy database is in there. A lot of you are asking questions about prophecies. We have a database, not only on the website, you can find it on the website, but also in the app. Under the info section, scroll to the prophecy database and search keywords. And if you find something, share it with us at codebreakers@houseofdestiny.org. That's the email address. Now of all times, I'm welcoming anything any information that's coming in. It's coming in like crazy, so it's hard for me to keep up. If I don't answer you right away, it does not mean I haven't read your message. But now is the time for that. And so go into that, download the app, go into the Prophecy database and see what you can find as well. And stay in the Word and stay in faith. And
you can also, which I've been doing, is watch Newsmax.
Yes,
TV.
Newsmax One American
TV.
News Network too.
One American News Network. You can download Parler. You can download Rumble. These are all alternative, conservative social media platforms, so that we can get rid of the monopoly that is going on in this country that is actually stifling our voices.
Yes.
And we are the people, and this country needs to be heard and controlled by we the people. So
right, and we also want to remember to pray for our senators who are having the hearings with these social media, Facebook and Twitter. They've been having hearings because of the censorship that's happening. So pray for those senators that are fighting for our freedoms. I was very proud of the Tennessee senator and the way she handled the hearings recently, just this past week. So keep praying for those in politics right now who are godly people, who do see the truth about what's going on, who are fighting against this. It's not just Donald Trump. There's a lot of good people. Yes. There's not all bad people in politics. And a lot of them are trying to do the right thing, and they are sort of lone wolves crying out there in the wilderness. So pray for them too. And
be safe out there, everybody. Be safe.
Yes.
And we'll see you again on the next Current Events.
God loves you so much, and guess what? We do too, because He lives in our hearts. We want to hear from you. You can email us at hope@houseofdestiny.org, and be sure also to tuck in a testimony when you have opportunity. God is great. He's doing a wonderful work, and we're excited about it.
Thank you for watching the House of Destiny's YouTube channel. Please subscribe to get all of our latest content. This video was brought to you by all of our generous supporters. If you'd like to give, click the link in the description. We have new episodes every week, so stay tuned, and remember, you're somewhere in the future and you look much better than you look right now.